situation. I would like to again express my deep regret to the students who have been affected by this situation involving the SEA awards. The press release yesterday attempted to provide some clarity and attempt to provide some further clarity. This issue of SEA review and placement. The SEA is primarily an examination to place a child in a school. So when students do their choices and so on, students who get into their school of first choice do not usually do reviews of the SEA. This review process, where the examination paper is relooked by the chief examiner of the appointed by CXC to do so, that is primarily for students who did not achieve their goal, which was the school of their choice, and they review their results, and if that student was able to make it over the cut score, then they will be accommodated at the school. So no one is taken out of the school to put that student in. They are accommodated. We have 19,000 odd students writing the examination. On a given year, we have about 400 reviews, and about 30 to 40 of them result in children changing their placement at schools. In 2020, this matter came up. This was the first time that we had a situation where students in the top tier of the SEA would have done reviews resulting in this kind of situation. So this matter is not new. It came up in 2020 and it was dealt with at that time. We consulted our legal department, we looked at the situation, because for all of the years, that SEA top tier has been determined by the preliminary results. Because these students are already in their schools of first choice, they do not usually do reviews. So when that was presented, those two students, as is customary, would have already been identified as the top students. And so to pull that back would have been very damaging, as it is now in this whole glare to those students. And so the decision was taken that we would stand on the principle of preliminary results as it had happened for all of the years. That has been the precedent, and that is where we stood. So that decision was taken within the ministry. It was communicated since 2020. What has caused this to arise is the unauthorized action of a senior official of the ministry who, without asking approval, changed that listing on the basis of reviewed results. This was against the position taken back in 2020. So I became aware of the situation when the lawyer letter was sent to me. That is how I knew what the official had done, because the official did not seek approval, as should have been the situation. So the reversal of the position to ensure that the student who was identified based on the principle since 2020, that had nothing to do with the lawyer letter per se. It had to do with the fact that the ministry had already in 2020 made a decision on this matter. This also came up with other children in 2020 as well as 2021. So it is not this one person that's involved. And that is why it was so important for us to make a decision and stand on the principle of what had been the precedent for all the years. So by that one unauthorized action, it has thrown this whole thing into a very, very negative light. And I want to apologize to children, because that girl who was placed first based on preliminary results, she was placed first based on the precedent that all other years had followed. And so it is unfortunate that her achievement is now being questioned. And while we celebrate the achievement of the young man, he was also in the top tier. He might have been 9th or 10th, I think, placed in the preliminary ranking. While we celebrate that, again, in 2020, we stood on a principle because we could not reverse a decision and cause distress to students who, by no fault of theirs, were placed first and second.
But Minister, why stand on something that a principle that is not ethical? Because this award should be to the highest ranking student.
Okay, it is the highest ranking student based on the preliminary results, and that is the principle. And that has been the principle for all the years. Consider that the person who does the review now has a second chance for their paper to be gone over. The other people did not have that chance. They did not exercise that option. So that is an extra. So consider it from that angle.
But would it be practical to do the awards after the query period has passed?
And what I'm saying to you is that this came up for the first time in 2020. This had never happened before, because the students at the top tier, having achieved their purpose in SEA, passed the school of their first choice, did not usually review. So this came up. Remember, reviews come in about 2 months after results. And everybody's accustomed, the media accustomed, going to celebrate the first child and second place. That is always on preliminary results. So this situation situation would not have come up before. And so that was the first year dealing with that. So the ministry was put in position. So do you now say to this child who was celebrated all over the media, no, you didn't come first? So that is where we looked at it and we said, this has always been on preliminary results, we will maintain that position. So it's not unethical.
So will the ministry now review the decision to award this space of
Well, this has now evolved, in my opinion, to an unhealthy situation. We now have lawyers involved. SEA is, by definition, an exam to get children into their secondary school. I know for sure when I did SEA, I know if I came first, second, 200, I don't know what I came. But I knew that I went to my school and I did well. And I purposely ensured that for my SEA, well, it was convention at that time, I worked hard to get into my school of choice. And so therefore, the decision going forward will very likely be to let students concentrate on getting into their school of choice without the additional stress of thinking about where they came in the ranking and recognition, that kind of thing. The recognition is enough for your family to celebrate you with these things.
So you want to be able to entire award
that is my intention. It's become unhealthy. Look at what has happened to two top performing students of our country. Plastered all over the media. People saying all kinds of things on social media. I mean, it really has become unhealthy. Lawyers involved, children distressed, families distressed, and these are children top performing who are already in their top schools, which is the point of the SE. So I don't know that it adds value to these students' lives.
And is the ministry concerned about the integrity of that grading system? To have a child, I saw a report stating that, an express report stating that he was not even in the top 10. And to have him reviewed and become number 1 is a major gap. So are you concerned about the integrity of that?
If you consider the marks, you will come to the major gap. That student queried their essay and went from 18 to 20. It's at the top tier, it's not a major gap. It's small marks that separate the students, and that's why this is so patently unhealthy. Because you have students who really should be celebrating how well these students are going to Form 2. And look at where, when we are discussing this, to bring the stress to them, their friends, their family, and all because of a matter that was settled way back in 2020.
Has the ministry considered perhaps giving them both President's medals, at least this year, because he's rightfully deserving?
At this point in time, there are other people who review, other people who ask for recognition, and we stuck to our policy decision, and that's why we made a policy decision. We will leave it on the basis of preliminary results. So at this point, the recommendation that was asked for by the President's House would have been the first and second place, and that is what we sent based on the decision.
So will there be any provisions to award the student to come in the first final of all this?
Award him
For somehow coming in all this?
It's very unfortunate, and I have had people reaching out to me, and I feel very sorry that this has taken place. It was unnecessary, and again, it stems from that unauthorized action. But I will discuss in the ministry what we can do, because there are other students who would have reviewed results and would have been asking for recognition, and we would have said there's no further. Once we do that first day of results ceremony, there's been nothing further. So that will be an additional consideration. But we really, I can say, for me, I feel really, really distressed that child had to face this situation. It was unnecessary because this had already been determined since 2020.
And will there be any disciplinary options for the official who made the call?
There are options available to me, and I will be pursuing.
Now, this is all part of what a lot of persons would say is a bigger problem, which is the SEA placement exam itself. So where's the ministry in discussions to abolish this and move into a gradual
The SEA committee has been formed. The Prime Minister would have formed the SEA committee, and you will see the Prime Minister doing that because of the gravity of the situation. And I know they are doing their work. I've had reports from them, so their reports are expected imminently, and we will look forward to that.
And what came of the meeting with Chita yesterday?
We met, we discussed the different areas of concern. Of course, we are all concerned about health and safety. We are all concerned to ensure that schools, carry out the protocols. Students are mindful of the protocols, ensuring that there's cleaning agents at the schools, ensuring that vacancies in teaching service are filled so that teachers are able to manage the students well, supervision for the students. So the usual issues of school operation were discussed. Chita gave us some recommendations, and so we're looking at that. They were looking at whole school assemblies and whether we should restrict that, and so it was a very good discussion on a wide range of areas.
And what is the state of readiness in terms of infrastructure across the board at this time?
Work is still being done. During the time of the COVID, when our schools were not open en masse, we would have concentrated on the schools that were actually open. So from February 2021, we would have had secondary schools open. So that would have been the concentration. So now, as more schools are coming on, so when primary school students came out, we would have focused on primary schools. So we're now focusing on both secondary, primary, as well as ECCE schools to ensure that they are all in a state of readiness. Of course, there are some schools that were not in a state of readiness that will not be. There are students who are still decanted into areas, and we know that is some of them long-standing. There's still that happening as well. So, but all preparations are being made to accommodate the students adequately across the country.
I know you said that health protocols would be observed, but in terms of physical distancing, when all the students return to the classrooms, would that be more or less done away with to accommodate all the students?
Well, you would have seen the rollback of our measures, and therefore, in the same way that you are here now, we expect, and you are maintaining your distance, and you are ensuring that you have on your mask and you sanitize. That's what students will have to rely on. There's hand washing in place, entry protocols still in place, and so we expect that our students will take on board what the rest of the country has to do in terms of ensuring that they maintain their personal safety.
Ladies and gentlemen.